hear a lot about the deaths related to cancer, but not a lot of us speaking enough when we have survived and what we've been through. But having survived, you're just happy, you know. You're glad that you made it. You're glad that God there was a lot of leaning on God. There are a lot of nights with God, family and partner, of course, but sometimes it's just you. And when it's just you, then there's God. How I realized I had breast cancer is through self-examination. Myself and my partner, of course, we recognized that there was in fact a lump. You know, you make up all excuses about what this lump could be. You know, you think about swollen lymph nodes, you think about, oh yeah, every breast has a lump. But no, we felt it and we knew we had to get to the doctor. Went to the doctor, part of the process is doing an ultrasound on the breast, and then you get the dreaded call. Oh, there's also the mammogram as well. So it's mammogram, then ultrasound. I wasn't 40, I was 31 when I was diagnosed actually. And we all know that you're not really told to do a mammogram until you're 40. So that's also why it's so important to do the early examination of your breasts. So yes, we did the mammogram, did the ultrasound, and then we got the dreaded call. It was awful. It was an awful day. And then, of course, you have to call your mom to let her know. And to be honest, that was probably even a little harder than receiving the call because then I had to say it. I had to tell her that I had breast cancer. That was tough, but we also knew, all right, what's the next step? What's the next move? How do we get rid of it? And that process will depend on a number of things, the type of cancer you have, the stage cancer. So you have to go through all those tests and the waiting period as well to understand what you have and how to treat it. Multiple doctors. There's a different doctor for the oncology side. There's a different doctor for the chemotherapy, different doctor for the surgery. And so it's really important that patients have a place that they can go. And so I would want to mention that I'm also on Jamaica Reach to Recovery's board for that very reason. When you are diagnosed, you need a team. You do need to know, you're confused when you're diagnosed, so you won't know that journey that I just laid out. I only know it because I went through it. But to help you along that journey, we have some societies in Jamaica that can help, Jamaica Cancer Society, as well as Jamaica Reach to Recovery, which is very specific for breast cancer. They help patients from the moment they're diagnosed through that journey that I mentioned. It's also going to cost you a pretty penny, and so they're really helpful where that's concerned because they'll help you to get the mammogram done, whether free of cost or significantly reduced. They'll help partner you with people who can help you through this journey. My scenario, I had stage 2 breast cancer. It's a triple negative, which means it's a very aggressive cancer. With that said, my team of doctors and I decided on an approach where I would do both chemotherapy and radiation, and of course the surgery to remove. That's called a mastectomy. I opted for a double mastectomy. That process took me about a year. I was diagnosed in 2011, and I was cancer-free, thank God, in 2012. Literally 1 year from when I started. Did 8 rounds of chemotherapy, 3 weeks apart. That was tough. Radiation is also tough. 20 days of treatment every day, consistently. But you do it because you know there's an end game, right? And the end game is simply to live. So let's get to a little bit of the after cancer journey. Because you think you're so happy that you're done, right? Yeah, I'm cancer free. But there's a little more to it in that, let's remember too, right? After chemotherapy and so on, you don't have any hair. So there's the emotional journey of it as well. But the truth is all in the end game, which is to live. So that becomes just a byproduct of what you're dealing with. You can consider changing your diet a little bit, ensuring that you're exercising. I was doing that from before, always exercising, by the way. Big thanks to Jair Lyons, who helped me get back in the game because, of course, you lose a bit of your strength going through chemotherapy, going through radiation, and quite frankly, not being in the gym for a very long time. But getting back in the game is important. Keeping your temple as fit as it can be is important. So yes, we did recognize that one arm was a little bit more, swollen than the other, but it wasn't big, perhaps a half an inch more than the other. But after I had my daughter, one Labor Day actually, this arm just really was swollen. My fingers were swollen. Clearly, I was very nervous and wondering what's going on, but I immediately went to the doctor, had it checked out, and it was the dreaded lymphedema. We always knew that there was a possibility of getting lymphedema because once you go into the lymph nodes, there's that possibility, but it came full on 10 years after. Lymphedema can't be cured. It is here to stay. But you can treat it, you can take care of it, and a big part of that is wearing my sleeve daily. What we're trying to do is to get the fluid pumping and flowing the right way. What happens is it sometimes goes the wrong way, and then when we get here, it doesn't have anywhere else to go. So the intention and the aim is through, whether therapy, treatment, and continuously wearing the sleeve to get the fluid flowing in the right direction. And then very, very recently, as recent as June, another complication came about. Didn't have any idea that it was related to possibly cancer or chemotherapy, but I started hearing like a humming sound in my right ear. Not so unusual. It felt like you went to a party and you were standing by a loudspeaker, but it wasn't going away. So I said, let me just go get it checked out anyway. Did. Doctor said, boy, they're not seeing anything unusual. Go and do a hearing test. Went to do a hearing test, and clearly this ear has lost a bit of the hearing. I say a bit, but really there are just some specific sounds, depending on the direction of the sound, that I'm clearly not hearing. With that said, though, went to the ENT specialist and so on. We've since done an ultrasound MRI on the ear. And on my record, of course, I don't hide it. I would have written that I am a cancer survivor. So he immediately asked me if I did chemotherapy, what were the drugs that I took. Because in the chemotherapy, I did mention it was 8 treatments. It was 4 treatments of a specific type of chemotherapy and 4 treatments of another type. He immediately said, that could be a cause of the hearing loss. I was in shock, not dreaming or thinking that 10, 12 years ago, I was making some decisions that clearly will continue to impact my life is the way I would say that, because who knows what's left to come. After being diagnosed and after you finish, because while you're going through it, truthfully, it's a lot of doom and gloom that you feel. Some of the things we want to speak about and discuss today will include early detection of breast cancer. That way, us women, we're doing our self-examination. We are understanding our bodies a little bit more so that we can recognize if there's any change in our bodies, and of course, getting ourselves checked out. Some of the other things we want to talk about are people who are affected with breast cancer. What do they go through? What is it like? How can the wider community help and support through that journey? Having had breast cancer, what are some of the things that you may go through? And what are some of the things that you may go through after you've survived the disease that you want to do? And I really encourage people to do them. Very often we say, I don't have someone to do it with. Boy, if you really need someone to do it with, find someone, but try doing it by yourself as well. You may be pleasantly surprised. We love to bring awareness to breast cancer, not only in October, but certainly in October. It is important. I did lose a couple of people along the journey, I'm not gonna lie. Because when you're diagnosed, you start to find people who are also diagnosed, and not all of us are going to make it. So I did have people who didn't make it through the journey, whether they were at stage 3, stage 4, whatever their journey was, they didn't make it, or they chose not to get treatment. I have met a few people like that as well. And so that also propels me to be so grateful that I am here. Important fact. Cancer is very expensive. Once you're diagnosed, it becomes really important to, I know it's a bad time, but it's really important to think, how am I gonna pay for this? But it's a little late when you're diagnosed, right? So I want to recommend to people, get critical illness insurance. You might think, I don't need that, but you need it. It covers usually 21 or more critical illnesses, and it does cover cancer, I believe, once it's greater than stage 1. With that said, there are a lot of insurance companies in Jamaica, but of course NCV Insurance, Guardian Life is who I'll promote because of the speed with which they'll ensure that you get the funds. Because as soon as you're diagnosed, you're going to need to activate that policy. Cancer treatment, I mean, again, I was diagnosed some 13 years ago, but then I spent over $6 million. So, I mean, someone has to equate that for us now, but that's what it was then. The chemotherapy alone, we're looking at, well, radiation alone was $1 million. As I said, that was 20 days, straight treatments. Then the tests. At the time, we didn't have a machine in Jamaica that could do the full cancer scan for me. It's called a PET machine. A PET scan does it. Rather, the PET machine will do the PET scan. It's a full body scan from head to toe. So I went to Florida to get that done, cheaper than going to New York to get that done, because they cater for the Caribbean. But now I know that Dr. Freddie has his own machine in Jamaica. Kudos for that. But that treatment is also very expensive. The chemotherapy now ranges. One was $250,000 per treatment. Yes, $250,000 per treatment. Yes, I said I did 8. So it's often very difficult to find the money all at once. And so the policy, I'm going to say, is one of the best ways. Sure, people will do fundraisers as well, but you need a lot of money and you need it quickly. So please consider adding an insurance policy as a part of your financial plan. So I have to admit, I was one of those who, when you're young, you're not thinking about that. Then comes to you for a life insurance policy. I'm like, I don't have any kids. I don't need life insurance. And certainly when my agent at the time mentioned critical illness, I'm like, I'm 20. I just started working, so I was like, 22. I'm like, I'm 22. Why would I need a policy? Truth is, any one of us could be diagnosed with any of them at any time. It really is important for us to take our health into consideration earlier, because also the policy is cheaper. Honestly, I think I may have been paying $1,000 or $2,000 the most per month for the policy, and it ended up saving my life. I have to say that because I'm not too sure where I've found $6 million. We recently had the launch of our ICW Pink Run. It was really good. We're all trying to go for $20 million. And the point of that $20 million is to help other breast cancer patients because the cost is high. We've said that before. And we're also trying to help with a mammogram machine that's really needed for a lot of Jamaicans to be tested. With that said, though, at the launch, a few people did approach me to say they also had this hearing loss. No idea that it could have been related to the breast cancer or the chemotherapy. So it's really good for us to talk about these things a little bit more. It is tough to talk about, and I wouldn't say to another patient that they have to or they should, but when you are ready to speak, it is important because others can be impacted positively, of course, with some of what we have to share.